In the story of modern China, few figures are as controversial as Empress Dowager Cixi. Ruling from 1861 until her death in 1908, she led the Qing dynasty during a period of profound crisis. This presentation analyzes why wars and reforms occurred during her reign and how these choices shaped the fall of Imperial China. Rather than labeling her as a villain or hero, we will examine the structural pressure she faced and the impact of her responses. Cixi was born in 1835 into a Manchu family and entered the imperial court as a low-ranking concubine. Her political position changed decisively after she gave birth to the emperor's only surviving son, which provided her with institutional legitimacy. Following the emperor's death in 1861, she helped orchestrate the Qinghui coup to remove conservative regents, a strategic response aimed at preserving dynastic continuity. Ruling behind the curtain, she used informal power structures to maintain control within a rigid Confucian hierarchy. During the Tongzi Restoration, the Qing government attempted moderate reforms, but they were deliberately cautious to avoid alienating the elite. Cixi's approach prioritized political survival over deep transformation. This prioritization was visible in the reconstruction of Summer Palace. Records suggested that funds intended for naval modernization were diverted to build the famous marble boat, a stone pavilion that could not move. This choice left long-term structural weaknesses, such as an outdated military, unsolved. By the 1890s, external pressure intensified. Japan's victory in the Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, proved that limited reform were no longer sufficient. This defeat led to the 100 Days Reform of 1898, an attempt to rapidly modernize China. However, Cixi opposed it because it threatened imperial authority and relied on inexperienced reformers. Cixi suppressed the movement, placing the Guangxu emperor under house arrest. This paradoxically radicalized intellectuals, planting the seeds of revolution. Foreign imperialism, unequal treaties, and missionary influence generated widespread resentment. The Boxer Rebellion emerged as a grassroots response to this humiliation. Cixi supported the Boxers as a defensive gamble, using popular anger against foreign domination. The impact was disastrous. Foreign armies crushed the rebellion and occupied Beijing. This event exposed the military weakness of the Qing state and destroyed its remaining international credibility. After 1901, the Boxer defeat proved that survival without modernization was impossible. Cixi reversed course, launching major reforms, abolishing the civil service exam, modernizing the military, and planning constitutional governance. She also initiated social changes, such as banning food binding. To repair her image, she engaged in inner court diplomacy with foreign educated attendants like Princess Darling. However, the reforms were reactive and came after decades of delay. Cixi died in 1908, just one day after the Guangxu emperor. She left the throne to the child emperor Pui. But the Qing dynasty collapsed only 3 years later in 1911. Was this collapse her fault? Analytically, Cixi succeeded in maintaining imperial rule longer than many expected under extreme internal and external pressure. However, her consistent prioritization of political control over institutional reform delayed the deep transformations necessary for survival. Even her death carried symbolic meaning. Accounting to Qing burial customs and eyewitnesses account from the 1928 looting of her tomb, a large luminous pearl, sometimes referred to a night pearl, was placed in Cixi's mouth, believed to slow decay and preserve beauty. She was interred in a lavish imperial mausoleum, reflecting the continued emphasis on ritual authority and preservation. Analytically, this burial practice mirrors her political legacy. Throughout her reign, Cixi sought to preserve imperial power rather than fundamentally transform it. Just as the pearl could not prevent physical decay, her strategy of preservation could not stop the collapse of a dynasty facing irreversible structural change. Empress Dowager Cixi's rule demonstrates the difficulty of governing during systemic decline. Her story illustrates how delayed reform, even when rational in the short term, can contribute to a long-term collapse. Understanding Cixi analytically helps us understand why imperial China fell, not because of one individual, but because of unreleased structural crisis.